The ruins were cold and quiet. Old buildings stood broken, and nothing lived there anymore. At least, that's what people believed. But deep inside the ruins, in the shadows and cracks, small shapes moved. They were not animals. They were children alien. Children with large eyes and thin arms. They were hungry, scared, and forgotten. No one knew they were there. And those who once knew had stopped caring. Luri was the oldest. She had sharp eyes and moved like a shadow. She was only 13 in human years. But her back was straight, and her voice was strong. The other children followed her. They called. Her big sister, even though she never smiled, she never had time to smile. There was no food, no water, no light, only survival. Then one day, something strange happened. Luri smelled something in the air. It wasn't smoke or rot, it was warm, soft, and full of life. She followed the smell and found a small metal box placed near the edge of the ruins. Inside the box were food packs, wrapped neatly, bread, fruits, and something sweet. She froze, her eyes narrowing. "It's a trap," she whispered. But the younger ones looked at her with pleading eyes. Tiny hands held empty bellies. Luri took the box and checked it for poison or wires. Nothing. She gave the smallest child a bite. He chewed slowly, then smiled for the first time in weeks. That night, they all ate. No one knew who left the food. No one saw him the next day. More food appeared. Same spot, same metal box. This time, it had warm soup in a sealed container. Still, no sign of the one who left it. Luri hid behind a wall the next day. Waiting, hours passed. Then finally footsteps. A human man walked up to the edge of the ruins. He wore a long coat, face covered with a scarf. He knelt down, placed the food box gently, and stood up. Then he turned and walked away. Luri blinked. He didn't wait. Didn't watch, didn't say a word. He just came, gave food, and left. That night, Luri said nothing to the others, but her mind kept asking, why? The next day, and the day after that, he returned, always the same. He never spoke, never looked around, just placed the food and walked into the fog. Luri began to watch him every day. She noticed something strange. His clothes were old, his boots torn. He didn't look rich, he looked tired. Like someone who gave too much and kept nothing for himself. One morning, Luri followed him. She moved like wind, silent and careful. The man walked through the broken roads and into the fields. There, she saw it a small, crashed shuttle. Burned and damaged. That's where he lived, inside the broken metal, alone. Luri returned to the ruins, confused. He has nothing. She whispered to herself, but still, he brings us food. That night, she sat awake. Holding a little one close, the child was warm, full, and dreaming. Luri looked at the stars and wondered what kind of human this was he didn't ask for. Thanks, he didn't ask for anything. Was he a spy? A soldier? A ghost? Or maybe, just maybe, he was someone like them, alone, broken, and trying to help. The children grew stronger. They laughed quietly, shared stories again. Their eyes had light, even if small, and every day. The man came. He brought more than food. He brought hope, but no one knew his name. One day, as the wind blew cold, Luri stood where the man always left the food. When he appeared, she didn't hide. She stepped out, arms crossed. Face hard, he stopped, surprised, but said nothing. "Why do you feed us?" she asked. Her voice was sharp, but inside, she was shaking. The man looked at her, then slowly took off his scarf. His face was kind, older than she thought. His eyes were tired, but warm. "I bring food," he said softly, "because no one else will." He set the box down and turned to leave. But Luri wasn't finished. "Do you expect something?" she asked. He stopped, shook his head. "No," he said. "I just don't like seeing children starve." Then he walked away. Luri stood there, frozen. She didn't know what to feel. She looked down at the box. Her reflection staring back at her. The wind carried the smell of fresh bread. Behind her, the children waited. In her hands, she held something more than food. She held a reason to hope, and for the first time, Luri whispered to herself, maybe not all humans are monsters. The sky was dark that day, thick clouds covered. The sun and cold rain poured down like the sky was crying. The old ruins became slippery, muddy, and colder than ever. Wind blew through the broken windows. And every child wrapped themselves in thin cloth. There was no fire, no heat. Just shivers and silence. Luri sat in the corner, her arms around the youngest child. His name was Rel, and his breathing was weak. He had been coughing all night. She checked his forehead. His tiny body shook under the wet rags. Her heart pounded, but her face stayed strong. She had to stay strong, for him, for all of them. But inside, she felt helpless. No one was talking that morning. The usual whispers and small laughs were gone. All eyes looked toward the edge of the ruins, the place where the human left the food. Luri stood, her legs heavy. He won't come today, she said, trying to sound sure. The rain is too strong. No one answered, but their eyes stayed there. Waiting, hoping, hours passed, and the rain got worse. Some of the younger ones began to cry. Rel's coughing became sharp, painful. Luri held him close and whispered, "Just sleep, little one, just sleep." But her own tears mixed with the rain on her cheeks. She was ready to go out and find herbs herself, even if it meant facing the wild dogs near the far side of the ruins. Then something happened, a sound. Not thunder, not wind footsteps. Slow, steady, coming closer. Luri stood up quickly and rushed to the edge. And there he was, the human soaked from head to toe. Water dripping from his hair and coat, but still holding that metal box. His hands were shaking from the cold, but he held it like it was gold. He didn't speak. He placed the box gently, turned around, and walked away through the storm. Luri didn't call him, didn't stop him. She just stared as he disappeared into the gray mist. Then she dropped to her knees and opened the box. Inside was warm soup. Steam still rose from the container. It smelled of life, of comfort, of safety. She ran back to the children. Rel was barely awake, his breath shallow. Luri knelt beside him and slowly spooned the warm soup to his lips. He sipped, coughed, then sipped again. For the first time in days. His hands stopped shaking. His eyes closed. But this time not from pain. He slept, finally resting. Finally safe, the others gathered close. Luri shared the soup, small spoonfuls for everyone. It wasn't just food, it was medicine. There were healing herbs inside. Special earth plants mixed with care. She realized then this man didn't just bring what he had. He brought what they needed, even in the rain, even when he had nothing. That night, Luri sat under the broken roof. She stared at the edge of the ruins and whispered into the rain, "Why do you keep coming?" She had asked him once, and he said, "Because no one else will, but now." She felt something deeper. This wasn't just kindness. It was commitment. It was pain. She wondered what kind of life the human had before this. Why did he live alone in a broken shuttle? Why did he spend his time feeding alien children who could offer him nothing? The others began to ask too, do you think he had a family? Maybe he lost someone. Maybe he was like us. Luri didn't answer, but deep down, she felt he wasn't just helping them, he was healing himself. The next morning, when the rain finally stopped, the sun peeked through the clouds. A weak light spread over the ruins. Rel opened his eyes and sat up slowly. He smiled at Luri and said, "The soup was warm." And for the first time in a long time, Luri smiled back. She held his hand and nodded. "Yes," she said, "it That afternoon, she walked alone to the place where the human always came. She waited, and when he arrived, she didn't hide this time. He saw her and stopped. She walked up slowly, holding something in her hands. It was a piece of old cloth, folded neatly. Inside, it was a small stone with flowers carved into it. Gift from Rel. She held it out to the man. He looked surprised, then gently took it. "Thank you," he said. She nodded. "You saved him," she whispered. "You saved us." Then she walked away, leaving him standing there in silence, holding the gift. That night, the children laughed again. Their bellies were full, and their hearts were light, and though the walls were still broken, something stronger than stone protected them now, eh? Man with nothing who gave them everything, and even in the storm, he never stopped coming. The wind carried dust through the ruins. The sun had returned after many cold days, but the air was still sharp and dry. Children sat in corners, holding warm bread in their hands. They didn't eat like before, quickly, fearfully, like it might disappear. Now they ate slowly, tasting each bite. Because it wasn't just food anymore, it was trust. Jack still came every day. He left the metal box, nodded softly if Lori watched, and walked away. But something inside Lori had started to change. The questions in her heart were louder now. Why won't he speak more? Why won't he stay longer? Why does he treat us like we matter? One afternoon, Lori sat on a broken wall, watching Jack walk toward the usual spot. She didn't hide this time. He placed the box and turned to leave. But Lori jumped down in front of him, blocking his path. He stopped, confused but calm. "We are not dogs," she said, her voice hard and sharp. He blinked, then tilted his head slightly. "We're not strays," she added, louder this time. "You feed us like animals, and then you leave." Jack looked at her for a long time. He didn't get angry, didn't raise his voice. Instead, he slowly sat down on a nearby rock. He opened the box of food in front of them and pulled out a piece of bread. Then, with both hands, he broke it in half, one piece for him, one piece he offered to her. Lori stared at it, unsure. Jack looked into her eyes and said, softly, "I never thought of you as animals." She didn't take the bread. Not yet. Then why treat us like shadows? She asked, "You come and go, never speak, never stay." Jack gave a sad smile. "Because I didn't know if you wanted me here," he said. "I didn't want to scare you." Lori's hands tightened at her sides. She was used to lies, but Jack's voice didn't sound like a lie. It sounded tired, honest, and real. Still, she needed to know more. "Why us?" she asked. "Why care?" Jack looked down at the broken stone beneath their feet. "I used to have a daughter," he said slowly. "She died, and I couldn't save her." The wind paused for a moment, as if listening. "I saw you all," he continued, "hiding, starving. I couldn't walk away." Lori's heart thudded painfully for a second. She saw Jack, not as a human, but as something else. Someone hurt, someone lost, just like them. She sat down too, still keeping some space. The children peeked from behind walls, watching silently. Jack reached into the box and pulled out small containers, this time filled with rice and vegetables. He gently pushed them toward her. "This isn't a gift," he said. "It's a promise. No one should feel forgotten." Lori finally took a container. Her fingers touched the warm surface, and her throat tightened. The food smelled good, but it was more than that. It smelled like respect. No words were said after that. She stood up, gave a small nod, and walked away with the box. Back inside the ruins, the children gathered around her. "Did he say anything?" one of them asked. Lori nodded. He said, "We're not forgotten." The little ones smiled, and even Rel clapped softly. That night, they shared the food, sitting in a circle. Lori told them about Jack's daughter, about his pain, and about the way he looked when he said the word promise. The next morning, something was different. When Jack arrived, a small surprise was waiting for him. A little alien girl had placed a hand-drawn picture near the drop-off spot. It showed a tall human standing with alien children holding hands. Jack paused when he saw it. He crouched down slowly and picked it up. His hands trembled slightly. He looked around and saw Lori watching from behind a broken wall. He didn't wave, didn't speak, but he pressed the picture to his chest and bowed his head. That single moment meant more than words. It said, "I see you." It said, "Thank you." It said, "I will keep coming." Later that day, Luri found an old board in the ruins. She scratched something on it with a sharp stone. 3 words, "We are people." She placed it at the food drop, where Jack would see it the next day, not as a warning, but as a message, a declaration. They were not animals. They were not forgotten. And now, thanks to one quiet, broken man who came with food, they believed it again. It was a quiet night. To quiet, the moon above the ruins shined like a broken eye in the sky. The wind didn't blow, the shadows didn't move, but Luri couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. Like the air itself was holding its breath. She stood up from her place near the smallest children and looked toward the food drop. It was still empty, as it always was at night. Jack only came in the day. Still, her gut told her something was off. Then she heard it movement, not Jack's slow, careful footsteps. These were fast, sharp, heavy. She climbed up a broken wall, and her eyes caught a figure in the dark. Not one but 3 strangers, raiders. They weren't there to help. They were digging through the spot where Jack always left the food. One had a knife, the other a rusted blaster. They laughed as they picked apart the old metal box Jack had left earlier. "Look at this," one of them said. "Humans feeding the trash aliens now." Luri's hands turned into fists. Her body shook not from fear, but anger. Those boxes weren't just food. They were life. They were Jack's promise. She turned to run back to warn the others, but then she stopped, because from the shadows, behind the raiders, another figure appeared. Jack, he didn't make a sound. He didn't shout. He just walked forward, slow and calm, like a wall of stone moving through mist. The raiders turned around and laughed. "Well, look who came crawling." One said, "The food man." Jack didn't answer. He only looked down at the half-broken box they had ripped open. His face didn't show fear, only quiet pain. One of the raiders stepped forward, blade in hand. "Go home, old man," he sneered. "This ain't your business." But Jack didn't move. He slowly took off his long coat, folded it, and set it aside. "Not strong but ready. I won't let you take what's meant for them," he said. The fight was short, rough, and brutal. Jack took the first hit. A punch to the side, then another to the jaw, but he didn't fall. He grabbed the wrist of the one with the knife and twisted it hard. The blade dropped. The second raider aimed his blaster, but before he could fire, Jack kicked sand in his eyes. He rushed forward and tackled him to the ground. They rolled across the stones, fists and knees slamming into each other. It was ugly, wild, real. Luri watched from above, frozen in place. She had never seen someone fight for them not like this, not with blood and grit and no care for his own safety. Jack fought like a father protecting his children. Not for glory, not for power, just to keep a promise. One of the raiders screamed and ran. Another followed, limping and cursing. The last one crawled away into the dark. Jack stood there, shaking. Blood dripped from his lip, and his shirt was torn, but he was still standing, still holding the box. What was left of it? Luri ran to him, her heart racing. "You're hurt," she said, voice breaking. Jack looked at her, smiled weakly. "I've had worse," he said. He handed her the broken container. "Still something inside," he added. Don't let it go to waste. But Lurie didn't care about the food in that moment. She grabbed his arm and helped him walk. For the first time, she brought him into the ruins. The children stared with wide eyes as Jack stepped through the doorway. He was bleeding, dirty, bruised, but in their eyes, he was a warrior, a protector, someone who had fought for them. They laid him down on a soft patch of cloth. One child brought water, another found herbs. Lurie cleaned the cuts and wrapped his arm. No one spoke much that night, but something had changed. The barrier between human and alien, helper and helped broke. He wasn't just the man who brought food now. He was part of them. Later, as the stars moved above, Jack opened his eyes and whispered, "Thank you for letting me in, Lurie." Squeezed his hand and said, "You didn't ask for anything, but you gave us everything." She looked around at the children, watching from the corners. "You're not just the food man anymore," she said. "You're family now." Jack smiled softly, and for the first time, he stayed the night, inside, safe, with the ones he had protected with blood and bone. The morning sun spilled gently through the cracks in the ruined ceiling. Jack opened his eyes slowly, surprised he had slept. It was the first time in months he had rested without fear. Without cold, beside him, a small alien boy was curled up. Fast asleep on the other side, Lurie sat cross-legged, sharpening a broken spoon with a rock. "You didn't run," she said without looking at him. Jack smiled. "You didn't make me," he replied. From that day on, Jack stayed. Not as a guest, not as a hero, but as someone needed. And slowly, the ruins changed. It began with the fire. Jack taught them how to dig a small pit and build a safe flame that wouldn't smoke too much. They gathered broken furniture, dry twigs, even old clothes, anything that could burn. The fire was warm, but more than that, it was hope. For the first time, they sat in a circle at night, talking, eating, even laughing. Then came the food lessons. Jack showed them how to cook more than just survival meals. He taught them to boil water, season soup, make simple bread from crushed roots and salt. One day, he carved a pan out of thick metal and used it to fry tiny cakes with fruit. The children clapped as they tasted something sweet for the first time. Even Lurie smiled. As syrup dripped down her chin, "You're not just the food man." One child said, "You're the magic man now." But Jack didn't just teach how to fill bellies. He taught how to build. He walked with Lurie through the ruins, pointing at broken walls and tilted beams. "This place used to be strong," he said. "It can be again." They cleared space together, brick by brick. He taught them how to stack stones, how to use old wires as rope, how to seal cracks with dried mud. Every hand helped, even the smallest ones. The ruins became something new. Not just a hiding place, but a home in progress. The most powerful change came last. He taught them to dream. At night, Jack told them stories, not of war, not of hunger, but of green earth forests, of cities with lights like stars, of oceans where children swam. The kids listened with wide eyes. Even the quietest one, Mira, began drawing pictures in the dirt-tall towers, clean beds, full plates. When Jack saw the drawings, he crouched beside her and added a sun in the corner. "You forgot this?" he said gently. Myra looked up, smiled, and whispered, "I didn't know we were allowed to dream of sunlight." One evening, as Jack cleaned a wound on his arm, Lurie sat beside him. "You don't have to stay," she said. "You helped us more than anyone ever has." Jack looked at the fire, then at the children sleeping under thin blankets. "I had no reason to stay before," he said. "Now I do." The next morning, he brought out something wrapped in cloth. It was a small, broken sign made from wood. He cleaned it, carved into it carefully, and painted the letters with crushed berries. When he was done, he hammered it into the ground at the center of the ruins. The sign read, "Home." The children gathered around it, silent at first. Then one of them reached out and touched it. This is ours now. Jack nodded. No more hiding, he said. No more shame. Word began to spread. Even to nearby ruins, other abandoned children, some alien, some mixed blood, began peeking into the edges of the new home. Jack never turned them away. He waved them in, gave them food, and taught them the same as the rest. Lori became the protector, the one who kept things fair. Jack became the builder, the dreamer, the cook, the father in all but name. He never asked for thanks, but one day, the children gave him a surprise. They had used scraps and wires to build a small chair sturdy, with Jack's name carved into the side. They placed it near the fire and waited in silence. When Jack returned that evening, they led him to it and said, "This is yours now." He sat down slowly, touched the carving, and smiled. His voice was rough when he said, "I never thought I'd belong anywhere again." Luri sat beside him, her voice softer than usual. "You gave us fire, food, walls, and dreams," she said. "But the most important thing you gave us was the feeling of being worth it." Jack looked at the children dancing in the dirt, cooking bread on sticks, drawing suns and stars with chalk. He leaned back, closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, he felt full, not just in body, but in heart. Luri woke up with a strange feeling in her chest. The fire was still warm, the younger kids still snoring gently. But something was missing. A sound, a moment, a ritual. Every morning, without fail, Jack would bring the food crate, tap the old metal pipe twice, and call, breakfasts, waiting. But today, nothing, silence. Luri stood up quickly and scanned the camp. The crate wasn't there. No bread, no soup. No quiet footsteps echoing through the ruins. Her heart started to beat faster. Maybe he overslept. One of the kids mumbled, "He never oversleeps." Luri replied, already heading toward the field. The others followed, half-dressed, still yawning, worried, when they reached the edge of the ruins. Jack wasn't waiting. The path he usually walked was empty. No muddy boot prints, no trail of steam from hot soup, nothing. Luri's stomach tightened. "He left," someone whispered. "He finally left." "No," Luri said, shaking her head. "He wouldn't." She ran, fast and breathless, toward the wrecked shuttle where Jack lived, but when she reached it, her feet stopped. Her mouth fell open in shock. Jack wasn't gone. He was busy. He stood in the middle of a field, sweat pouring down his face. He was swinging a heavy tool, digging, pounding, building. Behind him were piles of scrap metal, plastic panels, and half-built walls. Solar sheets lay across the ground and next to them. A water tank stood halfway buried in the earth. Jack turned when he heard footsteps. He smiled, wiping his forehead. "Morning," he said. "You're just in time." Luri walked closer, blinking. "What is this?" she asked. Jack set the tool down and pointed. "It's your kitchen," he said. "And over there's sleeping quarters, safe and dry." Then he turned to a tall metal structure nearby. "And that, hopefully, will be a working bathroom." The children behind Luri gasped. They had never seen anything like it. Walls rising out of dirt, roofs being shaped by hands, machines humming with energy. "You didn't bring food," one child said softly. Jack looked down at his hands, scratched and bleeding. "I brought something better," he said. "A home that won't fall apart, no matter the rain, no matter the wind." He walked over to the tank and connected a pipe. Water flowed out, clean and cold. The children ran to it, laughing, splashing. One of them filled a bottle and held it like treasure. "It doesn't taste like rust," he shouted. "It's real water." Luri just stared. "You planned this?" Jack nodded. "I've been gathering materials for weeks," he said. "Didn't tell you didn't want to promise anything before I was sure." Luri crouched beside one of the frames, running her fingers across the smooth edge. "You're building us a real place," she whispered. Jack looked at her. "No," he said. "We're building it." That day, everything changed. Jack handed out tools, explained what to do, where to dig, what pieces fit where. Even the smallest children helped, carrying screws, holding parts steady. Lori helped plan the walls, drawing maps in the dirt. Everyone worked with fire in their eyes. Not because they were forced, but because this was theirs for the first time. Their survival didn't depend on hiding, it depended on creating. They built all day until the sun dipped low, and when the fire was lit that night, Jack sat beside it with sore arms and a wide smile. The food was simple, just roots and boiled leaves, but no one complained. They ate with dirty hands, scraped knees, and proud hearts. One of the girls, Mira, sat close to Jack and tugged his sleeve. "Why do you work so hard for us?" she asked. Jack looked at her, surprised by the question. Then he stared at the stars above and said, "Because I lost everything once, and I thought it was the end. But when I met all of you, I realized maybe that wasn't the end. Maybe this is my second chance." Luri heard those words and felt something inside her shift. She remembered how cold the ruins used to be, how hopeless, and now there was light, fire, laughter, and walls going up before sleep. She sat near the sign Jack had made weeks ago, the one that said home. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small stone carved with her mother's old symbol. Quietly, she placed it beside the sign. Then she whispered, "This place. It's real now." Behind her, the sound of hammers and hope filled the night. And the man who used to bring food now brought something even greater. A future. The walls were finished. The roof was sealed tight with layered scrap and melted panels. The wind still blew across the barren fields outside, but inside the new home, it was warm. There was laughter, footsteps, pots clanging, and the smell of something cooking over fire. This was no longer a ruin. This was no longer a hiding place. This was theirs. Jack stood in the corner, quietly hammering the last wooden shelf into place. Luri walked in, carrying a bundle of stitched rags that looked like blankets. "We found some more soft fabric," she said. "The little ones won't have to sleep on stone anymore." Jack smiled, wiping sweat from his brow. "You all did this," he said. "Not me." But Luri shook her head. "No," she said. "You showed us it was possible." Outside, the children were painting the outer wall with whatever colors they could find. Old juice, plant dye, even crushed berries. They drew suns, stars, and stick figures holding hands above the door. Someone had written, "Together we are strong." Jack stepped outside and paused to take it all in. The walls, the laughter, the clean water tank, the solar lights flickering on as the sun dipped low. It felt unreal. Weeks ago, there had been only ruins, dust, and silence. Now, there was life, and it was good. Mira ran up and grabbed Jack's hand. "Uncle Jack," she said, "we have a surprise for you." She pulled him along as the others giggled and tried to hide behind walls and corners. "Close your eyes." Someone shouted. Jack obeyed, grinning like a child. They led him to the center of the home, the old open courtyard, now cleaned and cleared. "Okay," Luri shouted, "open them." Jack opened his eyes slowly. Before him stood a long, uneven table made from scrap metal and wood. On it were bowls of food, colorful cups, hand-carved utensils, and even a strange glowing stone in the middle. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't perfect, but it was a feast. The children cheered, and Luri stepped forward with a small wooden plate in her hands. "We made this for you," she said, holding it out. Jack took it and saw that it had been carved with tiny names every child in the home. At the top, it read, "Thank you, Jack, you are one of us now." His hands trembled. He tried to speak, but no words came. Just a small breath, and then another, and finally tears not of sadness, not of pain, but of belonging. He looked around and saw the eyes of the children Somalian, some human-like, all smiling. This was not a rescue anymore. This was a family. They sat together and ate, laughing, joking, teasing one another. Rel tried to pour juice and spilled it on himself. Everyone laughed, and someone tossed him a dry cloth. Even Luri laughed. Jack thought it was the best sound he had ever heard after dinner. The fire burned bright in the courtyard. The stars above blinked like curious eyes. Luri stood up and raised her voice just a little. "We were lost," she said. "We were starving, and we were afraid." She turned to Jack. "But you came. You didn't ask who we were or what. We were. You brought food and fire and hope." She looked around at the circle of children, now clean, fed, and glowing in the firelight. "You gave us a home," she continued. "So tonight, we give you something back." She stepped forward and took his hand gently. "Jack," she said softly, "from this night on, you are not just someone who helped us. You are one of us. You are family." Myra stood too and whispered, "You can't leave now. Not ever." And another boy added, "Because if you go, who will tell us stories at night?" They all giggled, but their eyes were serious. Real? Jack looked at them mad each face. Each pair of eyes that once held only fear, but now sparkled with light. He couldn't hold the tears back anymore. He dropped to one knee, and all the children rushed in, hugging him from every side, little arms wrapped around his neck. His back, his legs. Lori knelt down beside him, her hand resting on his shoulder. She didn't cry, but her voice was warm as the fire. "You brought us life," she whispered. "Now we give you love." Jack closed his eyes and held them all close, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel like a broken man. He didn't feel like a lost traveler. He felt like a father, like a builder, like someone found. The stars above shined brighter that night, as if the universe itself paused to witness the moment. Not a war, not a battle, just one quiet human who fed the hungry, sheltered the lost, and in doing so, created something that would never die.